Hello there, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and page-turners they were not, but this is the podcast you're looking for.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brennan Long, as you're hearing is my ventilator. Welcome to A Larger World, presented by Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. A bit of sad news today. According to reports from Deadline and Variety and several other sources, the Acolyte has been discontinued. Apparently it's not been canceled technically because they had never announced a second season. So it's been discontinued. So as the stranger on the Acolyte might say, semantics. Whatever the case, the show has been discontinued. This is very sad news. Disappointing news. I'm not going to try to tell you why it was discontinued or who was responsible for making that decision, because I don't know the answers to those questions, and I don't know if anyone knows the answers to those questions other than the people who actually made the decision. Now, for me personally, the way that the show ended for me felt pretty satisfying. They answered a lot of the major questions. Soul's story came to an end. Osha embraced the dark side. May's memory was erased. Bernestra covered up the incident. And pretty much all of those loose ends were tied up. Now, there were some big threads still left hanging. What's going on with Darth Plagueis? Where does the stranger and Osha's story go next? And what's the story between Bernestra and the fact that the stranger used to be her apprentice, then turned evil? So there were a couple of threads still left hanging. But for me, the main particulars of the story were concluded in a pretty satisfying way for me. As I said, with Vernestra pinning it on Soul, not out of spite, but out of a necessity to keep Senator Raincourt and the politicians out of Jedi business. Everyone who heard Chimera or the stranger said he was a Sith. Many people, many fans asked the questions. Well, if the galaxy doesn't know about the Sith, why is this guy telling people he's a Sith? Well, as we saw by the end of the series, everyone who heard him say that is dead. Osha heard him say it, but she joined him. and May's memory is erased. So not even Vernestra knew that he said, I'm a Sith, or you might call me a Sith. Even Vernestra doesn't know that. So everyone who heard him say it is either dead or otherwise not in a position to reveal it to the galaxy. So their thread was successfully tied up. We know the full story of what happened on Brindok. Soul's story sadly came to an end. And a new beginning has come for the stranger and Ocean. Now, as disappointing as it is that the series has been discontinued, Star Wars has an interesting way as a franchise of continuing the stories. I think that this is an opportunity for books, comics, games, or any other media, heck, even an animated series, to continue the story that did not get to be told in live action. That the story's not over. We have seen this many times where a story is not over because they can continue to tell it in other media. And I think that that would be a great way to continue this story in books, comics, and other formats. Now, let's be clear here. There have been many times in the history of television, streaming, particularly the old television days, where a canceled or discontinued show has been saved by the fans. This happened with the original Star Trek series. The studio canceled it during season 2, but a fan campaign kept them going and allowed us to get season 3. Later in the 70s, a fan campaign revitalized Star Trek. And because of the success of Star Wars, Paramount decided to start making Star Trek movies. Now, we have to thank the Trimbles for this. The Trimbles were a husband and wife, also responsible for starting these Save Star Trek campaigns. And it worked several times. Furthermore, Community, one of my favorite shows, was canceled twice during its run. Maybe even more than twice. A fan campaign saved it. And it got the 6 seasons it was aiming for. And according to some old reports from 2 years ago, they are making a Community movie, which the hashtag in the old days was 6 seasons and a movie. So maybe that wish will come true. If I'm not mistaken, Arrested Development was saved by the fans. So many shows have been saved by the fans. So I still hold out a little bit of hope that maybe a fan campaign will save the Acolyte. Hashtag save the Acolyte. I have spoken. I said that on Threads the other night. And I got a lot of likes that way. I'm very happy about that. To actually have a post that lots of people see. So I'm not willing to put the nail in the coffin yet. I'm not particularly hopeful that the show will continue, but I can almost guarantee you that the story will continue in some other way. And as I said, I think that they wrapped up enough of the story to leave me satisfied. They left a few threads, but as my friend Joseph Scrimshaw over at Force Center likes to say, Star Wars is very much about what he calls tip of the iceberg storytelling. Now, what he means by that is that Star Wars, going all the way back to the original film, has given you little dangling threads or hints of other stories. It gives you a little hint, a little taste, a little dangling thread. And instead of explaining it right away, it leaves it to your imagination. And maybe they'll answer the question and maybe they won't. So I think that the way the Acolyte ended, they gave us just a tease of other things that I'm sure they were going to explain in a second season. But even if they don't get the chance to explain it, our imaginations can run with it. So for me, they answered most of the most pressing questions. And even if they don't continue the story at all, satisfied enough. And I like the idea of using my imagination to think what happens next. So, as sad as it is being discontinued, for me personally, I feel pretty satisfied. I'm disappointed we won't get more unless a miracle happens. And I am excited to see where they go next in terms of how are they going to tell this story. And even if they don't, I'm satisfied with what we got. I don't really understand the business, and I don't want to try to guess as to who is responsible for this decision. It is disheartening, but I have faith in the story to continue one way or another, and I look forward to it. So those are my thoughts on the discontinuation of Star Wars: The Acolyte. I want to thank Leslie Headland, the other writers, directors, actors, everybody involved in the show. The choreographer, because what I got made me very happy. And I want to thank everyone who had anything to do with making such an enjoyable experience, including good friends who got to go to the premiere. So, whatever, whatever the case, the hearing is later. Thank you for tuning in to A Larger World, presented by Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.